Looks like Capcom is all hands on deck for Resident Evil 7. And though it's nice to see Capcom making a new numbered Resident Evil game, I haven't forgot about the Resident Evil 2 remake that's supposedly still happening. It's the game that Resident Evil fans have been clamoring for ever since the GameCube remake of the original, and that's because that Resident Evil 2 is easily one of the best Resident Evil games ever, if not the absolute best one. But friends, this is Punching Weight, a celebration of the weird, ambitious, and unnecessary, and we're not here to talk about the original version of Resident Evil 2, we're here to talk about all the weird places it's shown up, and it's shown up in some very weird places. In this episode, we return to Resident Evil to shine a light on the second game. This is Punching Weight Episode 11, Resident Evil 2 Ports, Prototypes, and Oddities. Like our last Resident Evil episode, we begin with a prototype. This one may not be as well known because unlike the Game Boy Color port of RE1, the Game Boy Advance port of RE2 was never advertised or shown to the public. But it does exist and was leaked online a few years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Resident Evil 2 on a Game Boy Advance. Coming to us from Italian developers Ray Light Studios, this tech demo uses the same Blue Roses engine that powered their also impressively ambitious and frequent Punching Weight request port of Smashing Drive for the GBA. However, while that game shipped, Resident Evil 2 is a very short proof of concept. It's a fantastic glimpse into what might have been, but unfortunately is very light on features and content. It's a showpiece for Ray Light's Blue Roses engine, which does an impressive job rendering 3D models. As such, the zombies look entirely different, though Leon's model was pretty accurately remade. I love that walk animation. Shit, that ain't a walk, that's a strut. Huh. It's Mr. Kennedy if you're nasty. Here's a nice touch. Leon looks over his shoulder as he walks backwards instead of the series standard recoil. You have unlimited ammo in this demo, and thank God. Aiming is very slow and difficult, plus zombies are far more resilient here. You can die, and quite easily in this demo. There's no map and no files. You can equip the knife and even unequip the gun in the menu, but Leon will always have his gun when you return to the game. The game stops very short at the basketball court, just a few screens into the campaign. Near as we can tell, there isn't much else buried in the code, so no way to hack past this point to see the police station or what the lickers looked like. It's a very short, very rough demo. It's hard to say whether or not this game would have ever worked if given a full development cycle. There are conflicting rumors online that this was only created as a pitch to Capcom and never officially sanctioned by them, but pictures of a Resident Evil 1 GBA port and the existence of the Capcom logo at the start of the ROM here gave life to the rumor that things went the other way around and Capcom approached Ray Light to port Resident Evils 1, 2, and 3 to the GBA, and the deal just went cold. None of this was ever announced publicly though. Nothing of this supposed Resident Evil 3 port exists, and again, these pictures are all that currently exists of the Resident Evil 1 port, so it's pretty substantial that a working, playable demo of Resident Evil 2 exists. We reached out to Ray Light Studios for clarification, but at the time of producing this video, they had not responded to our questions. Ray Light was also responsible for a Metal Gear Solid tech demo and what may have been a version of Street Fighter Alpha 3 with 3D models. Ultimately, there's not much to the RE2 GBA prototype, but you have to imagine that deals like this happen all the time behind closed doors. But this leaked little tech demo is one of the rare times we got to see these deals for ourselves, and that's pretty incredible. If you want a legit way to take Resident Evil 2 on the go, there actually is a way, but not where you'd think or really want. The Tiger GameCom. The Tiger GameCom was a portable cartridge-based system from the makers of those cool, cheap little LCD games. Released in the fall of 1997, it had a touchscreen, internet capabilities, a packed-in version of Solitaire, and the earliest models featured 2 cartridge slots. The system managed to secure some pretty impressive third-party support: Duke Nukem 3D, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, Sonic Jam, and our oddity for this episode, Resident Evil 2. Even with big-name titles like these, the system allegedly sold fewer than 300,000 units over a 3-year span. But don't feel bad for Tiger. They bounced back in a big way by co-creating the Furby with Hasbro. The Gamecom port of RE2 is pretty faithful, but makes huge concessions to make it work. Screens don't recreate the camera angles of the original game, but the backgrounds do faithfully recreate many familiar locales around the gnarled remains of Raccoon City. Though I'd wager those not intimately familiar with RE2 would be hopelessly lost in the police station, because even I got turned around a bit. The sprites are big and detailed. They look really good, except for the fact there's almost no animation. There's no music, and the sound effects are sparse and of poor quality. Hey, check out this thing. That's supposed to be the liquor. I almost spat out my drink when I first saw that. Really, the whole thing looks like a Tiger Electronic LCD game and kind of plays like one too. Your movement is restricted to basically left to right. Walking up or down only shifts you to one of 3 planes of movement. You cannot move or aim diagonally. It makes the movement in combat simple, and maybe that's just as well because the controls are super unresponsive. Zombie ambushes are quite common because they're often waiting for you right as you move to a new screen, and getting your gun out in time feels sometimes like a game of chance. You can only play as Leon. This is because there were plans for a Claire campaign to be sold separately sometime later. The game's poor reception and the system's poor sales no doubt dashed those plans. Like Alone in the Dark for the Game Boy Color, Resident Evil 2 on the Gamecom might not be good, but it managed to actually ship. I mean, how amazing is it that one of the most revered horror games ever made found its way on one of the biggest flops in video game history? The best part of this game is that someone out there currently holds a world record speed run. That's dedication. And hey, if you want to buy 10 sealed copies of this game and prank a friend for the next 10 birthdays, head on over to eBay. Otherwise, if you want an odd but playable version of Resident Evil 2, I highly recommend our port for this episode. Pop quiz. Resident Evil 2 was successfully ported to many different systems, but which 2 versions managed to fit both campaigns into a single unit? The GameCube and N64 ports of Resident Evil 2 are the only 2 you can play to completion without ever getting off the couch. The GameCube version is a port of the Dreamcast version, which itself was a port of the DualShock PS1 version, so it's nothing to get too excited about. However, the N64 port is both a technical marvel and a unique version with exclusive content, something no Resident Evil superfan should be without. I think we all know the story of the N64 versus the PS1, and how Nintendo doubling down on carts cost them huge projects like Final Fantasy VII. It was the generation of the computer-animated cinematic and the multi-disc game, the kind of stuff that wouldn't fit on a 64-meg cartridge. RE264 is almost like a glitch in the Matrix. It's proof that the N64 could do what the PS1 could. This revelation was not lost on the dev team. Upon booting up the game, you are greeted by an N64 logo that begins to spin like a disc. Makes you wonder, had this technology existed a few years earlier, would Square have been able to put FF7 on an N64 cart? Actually, maybe not. While all the RE2 cinematics and both campaigns are present, the audio and video have a pretty noticeable drop in quality. The in-game models all look great, crisp and vibrant, but clash with backgrounds that are a bit fuzzier, though it's something you don't really notice after a while. But you've got to give it a pass when you think of the technical and cultural significance of this game. It's not too surprising to hear that the team responsible, Angel Studios, would become Rockstar San Diego, developers of Smuggler's Run, Midnight Club, and of course, Red Dead Redemption. That's enough to give RE264 the punching weight seal of approval, but there's more. Because this is the first Resident Evil game on the N64, there are numerous extra files that provide a lot more backstory. For example, a letter from the gun store owner to Barry and a note from Brad about Nemesis are found early on. These extra files not only fill in the story for people who've not played the first one, it fleshes out the Raccoon City part of the Resident Evil timeline. Hunk and Tofu are unlockable with a button code in this version, and also violence settings as well as blood colors. Hell yeah, green blood, why not? There's the option to play without the tank controls, though that big fat D-pad controls pretty well if you ask me. The other big exclusive is the item randomization mode. While it lacks the extreme battle mode found in the DualShock version, beating all 4 campaigns unlocks this exclusive mode found only in the N64 version. In fact, it's the only mode of its kind in the entire series. I wish I could tell you a little more about this mode, but I haven't actually played through all 4 campaigns on this version yet, but it stands as one of the major reasons to own this game, even if you already own it a few times over. And that's it for this episode. As always, if there are any weird, ambitious, or unnecessary games you'd like to see in future episodes of Punching Weight, let us know in the comments below. If you want more Resident Evil videos, you're in the right place. We've covered a lot of them over the years. Click the link on the right to see our Resident Evil playlist. Or if you'd like to switch gears to another horror franchise, I recommend you check out our review of Clock Tower 3 on the left. We also have a live channel where we post our weekly live streams. That's the link in the middle. Stop Skeletons from Fighting is a Patreon-supported show and would not be possible without these fine people here. If you'd like to see your name in a video, click the logo and give what you can. Otherwise, just make sure you subscribe and like and all that stuff. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Check out all those links below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.